It is very often said that every master or every expert was once a beginner. But in today's video we're going to see a game that will make even a former world champion and arguably the best player ever look like a beginner when he was already a top player. For that we have to go back to year 2007 in Dortmund, Germany, where the then world champion Vladimir Kramnik faced a very young but exceptionally strong Magnus Carlsen. And this game will basically revolve around one weak square that Kramnik will dominate to completely crush Magnus Carlsen. So the game started with knight to f3, and after knight to f6, here Kramnik played the move c4, seemingly going for an English opening. But after e6, Kramnik played the move g3, planning to fianchetto the bishop, and after d5 and d4, the game will transpose into a very well-known opening which is called the Catalan opening. And here after bishop to e7 and bishop to g2, in this position Carlsen castled. Taking on c4, as we'll see, is a main alternative, but in this particular position, if black takes on c4, in addition to castling, white has the option to go for the pawn straight away by going queen to a4 and then taking on c4. Queen to a4 gives a check, that's why white will get the pawn back. And here after black castled, white already castled. By the way, just want to mention a very important idea, that here taking on d5 is not white's main idea, because this would really help black develop the bishop on c8, which is a piece that has problems to develop so far, because here after pawn takes, now the bishop on c8 can develop easily, for example to f5 or g4, so this is really helping black. That's why white wants to keep the tension on the center and castled. And in this position, now Carlsen captured on c4, playing c6, trying to hold the center is another alternative, but taking on c4 is the main line for black, and even though black wins a pawn, now white gets this pawn majority on the center, 2 pawns against 1, and after queen to c2, black will have trouble keeping the pawn. In this position, Carlsen played the move a6, which is the main idea, planning to go b5 as we'll see, but going b5 straight away here is not particularly useful because white can get the pawn back after a4. First of all, if black plays a6, after pawn takes, this pawn is pinned, so black cannot capture back on b5. So here black normally plays b4, giving the pawn back, and I want to show you an instructive line. c6 is also not a good move for black, because after pawn takes and pawn takes, there's a very nice move for white here, which is the move knight to g5. So attacking the rook on a8, and there's an idea to capture on h7, giving a checkmate. If black blocks this attack on the rook by going knight to d5, after queen takes, we get this very nice checkmate. So in this position, black cannot avoid losing material. The relatively best continuation here is to go h6, attacking the knight. Now the knight on f6 is controlling h7, but here white can simply take the rook on a8, even knight takes f7 and then capturing the rook is possible, but taking the rook on a8 and after pawn takes and bishop takes, white ends up winning material in this line and getting a better position. So a6 here is the main idea by black, just giving the pawn back and then going b5, attacking the queen, and after the queen moves, it normally goes to c2, now develop the bishop to b7, where it will become more active. And here white has many options, but white decided to play a move which is not that common, but still quite tricky. So here white played the move bishop to d2. And we can understand this move if we know one of black's main idea in this position, which is to go knight b to d7 and then go c5. This is one of the main problems that black still has to solve, which is this pawn on c7, which is a backward pawn. But here the idea is to go bishop to a5, pinning this pawn, then bring a rook to c1, so white still has some annoying pressure on black's position. And here I just want to mention an interesting move for black. Since white played a weird move, black can do something similar and go rook to a7. This move has many ideas. First of all, it protects the bishop, and it also protects the 7th rank, including the pawn on c7, which as we know is going to be a target. So this was an interesting alternative. Black has many options, but the move that Magnus played didn't go very well for him. Here he played the move knight to c6, which already looks a bit artificial because the knight on c6, it's blocking the c7 pawn, it's also blocking the bishop on b7, so black's pieces don't seem to coordinate very well, which is something amazing coming from Magnus Carlsen, who is really well known to place the pieces on the best squares. So here Kramnik played the move e3, protecting the pawn on d4, and now here Carlsen followed up with knight to b4. Maybe rook to a7 was an option. Black still has to solve the problem with this pawn on c7, but Carlsen's idea was to go knight to b4, attacking the queen. But after bishop takes and bishop takes, a3, here Carlsen played bishop to e7, bishop to d6 was probably a bit better, controlling the e5 square, and now Kramnik fully develops with knight b to d2. Now the idea is to bring a rook to the c file, putting pressure on this pawn on c7. So here Magnus played rook to c8, c5 is a big threat. Actually, if black manages to open the position with c5, black might even end up being better, but Kramnik is not going to allow this, so he went b4, controlling the c5 square, and now white has ideas to put long-term pressure. Knight to b3 is another idea. That's why here Magnus played actively and went a5, which is an interesting idea, trying to create counterplay, and here Kramnik followed up with knight to e5. Taking on a5 was actually not a good idea because now black, just for the cost of a pawn that black can get back easily, manages to get very active. So now Kramnik played this very interesting idea of knight to e5, with the idea to trade bishops and then dominate this c6 square, which is weak. And here Carlsen played the move knight to d5. Again, Carlsen is playing actively. In this particular position, it was probably better to trade bishops because there will be a tactical refutation to Carlsen's idea. And after king takes, here black has a few options, playing the move c6, even though this position doesn't look very nice for black. It was better than what happened in the game. And by the way, here white cannot capture the pawn on c6 because after queen to d5, we see a drawback of the king on g2. Black is forking the king and the knight and winning material. And even in this position, if black doesn't go c6, taking the pawn on b4 and allowing white to play knight to c6, which is something similar to the game, is even better than what happened in the game because after queen to d7, pawn takes, black has knight to d5, and this knight on d5 cannot be captured because there's no bishop on g2. This is also a position that doesn't look very nice for black, but it was still better than what happened in the game. But most likely, Magnus saw these lines where black is still suffering and instead decided to play actively and went knight to d5, putting pressure on the pawn on b4, increasing the pressure, but probably he missed or he underestimated Kramnik's reply, which is the very nice move knight to b3, allowing black to capture on b4 and planning to go knight to a5, attacking the bishop. So here after pawn takes, knight to a5, black went bishop to a8, and now the knight infiltrates on c6, and after bishop takes and knight takes, attacking the queen, queen to d7, and we see another very nice idea because normally this bishop on the Catalan is one of white's strongest pieces, but here Kramnik doesn't hesitate to keep this bishop for knight, because what really matters here is the remaining pieces and not the pieces that are being traded. So here, first of all, black cannot capture with the queen because after knight takes e7, we get this fork. That's why black has to capture with the e-pawn, and after pawn takes, white got the pawn back, but more importantly this knight on c6 occupying this weak square is really tying down black's pieces. So first of all, it's attacking the bishop, defending the pawn, and also controlling the b8 square. So after black played rook f to e8, rook to a5, amazingly, black's position is just collapsing, there's no way to defend this pawn on b5, and after bishop to f8, the game actually continued a few moves, but white already has a winning position. Kramnik first played knight to e5, and after queen to e6, rook takes b5, Kramnik already gets an extra pawn and a better position. Carlsen tried trading rooks, but here queen takes e7 is actually very strong. Now Carlsen tried bishop to d6, if rook takes b4, white has this very simple idea to go rook to a1, with several ideas like rook to a7 or rook to a8, white is a pawn up and having a dominant position. So here Carlsen tried bishop to d6, and after queen to a5, now Carlsen took on b4, taking on e5 wouldn't change the position a lot, because after rook to d1, white is collecting another pawn. And after bishop takes b4, here comes a very nice move, rook to b1, pinning this bishop. The queen cannot be captured because after rook takes b8, white gives a checkmate. And after queen to d6, queen to a4, very quiet move to finish the game. Knight to c6 is a big threat, so the knight plans to go back to the key square of the game. So here Carlsen had enough and resigned. The play could have continued something like bishop to d2, and here Kramnik can simply trade rooks. And after queen to d7, more material will fall, so this is just a desperate position for Carlsen. So this was a really amazing game. When I first saw it, I couldn't believe my eyes how such a promising player who would later on become the world champion could be outplayed in a seemingly easy way. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. This will help me a lot. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.